Sunrisers.
Good morning.
Let me get the screen share going here.
I'm taking a walk.
Oops, might want it.
Oh, beautiful for heroes' fruit and liberating strife, who more than self their country love and mercy more than life. America, oh America, may God thy gold revive, till all success be nobleness and every aim divine. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber ways of grace, for purple mountain majesty, of the fruited land. America, oh America, God shed His grace on thee, yeah, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea, yeah. America, oh America, God shed His grace on thee, yeah. Crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea, oh, shining sea.
Shall we do the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
States of America, and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
for
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Diana has our reflection.
I do not.
Yeah, you do.
Check it. Oh my goodness. Can anyone else help me? I totally get it.
I've got one.
Okay, thank you. I can do next week.
Yep. A popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power that knowledge provides.
Okay.
That's James Madison, August 22nd. I've done it before from a letter to a friend who was in Kentucky who was talking about they were creating a school system, and that was his letter back to him.
Wow. Well said.
Very good.
Pretty prescient. He was a smart guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Truly.
Yeah.
And the four-way test.
Is it the
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill
and
better
better friendships?
friendships?
Will it
Will it
be
be beneficial to all concerned?
Our note taker today is Ed Perry. Thank you, Ed, right?
Got it.
Ed, thank you.
Morning, Ed.
Morning.
And we have a bunch of birthdays here recently. Octave Octave.
I like my last name.
No. Close enough.
I'm sorry, Octave. I was doing this late last night.
It's all right. I heard it in many ways.
Was June 1st. And Diana is
June 2nd.
How do I get this all wrong?
2 for 2.
No wonder you got it wrong. It's wrong.
I thought I took it off the
Octave
spreadsheet.
Boron's birthday.
It's that guy.
It was a long delivery.
Maybe you get him to join.
Anyway, happy birthday! And just because I screwed up, we're not going to try and sing, okay? Even though.
Oh, you might as well now.
All right.
Solo.
Paul, why don't you lead us then?
No, it's your gig.
All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Octave and Diana. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
anniversaries was Phyllis Bishop, Scott Paisley, and Rob Patton.
I didn't know the three of us were connected.
Well, there's nothing, not that there's anything wrong with that.
There you go.
Oh. Another one of those kind of days, huh? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, just so you know, our bucket money this month goes to the Cunningham Township Angel Fund. And if you need more information on it, let me know and I'll send you a link to it. They're helping out lots of people right now. And so we're going to give them support. Our bucket money for next month is going to be to the Prosperity Gardens.
Excellent.
Excellent. Hey, I do have one question before we get going.
Okay.
Who recorded us doing that version of America at our karaoke event? That I can't believe somebody recorded that.
Wow. How do you know?
Rob,
I mean, doesn't it
your
sound-
lead was just awesome. Your lead was just awesome, you know. I thought, you know, the rest of us really were just kind of following along.
There you go.
Is that a YouTube sensation or how do we know?
Well, that's the question.
Oh, okay.
Tom Muellen's gonna introduce our guest speaker today, Gabe Lewis of the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Daryl. Morning, everybody.
Morning, Tom.
Gabe, good morning to you, and thanks for doing this.
Morning.
Gabe is a planner at the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission. He's a native of Champaign-Urbana, a University of Illinois graduate, and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. He's worked at the RPC, the Regional Planning Commission, for 13 years, most of that time in transportation planning, and has recently expanded his work to demographic and general planning. Gabe.
All right. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully this will work. Can everyone see Census 2020 presentation?
Not quite.
No, not quite. Let's see. Resume. How about now?
Here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I can remind everyone to mute themselves during this, otherwise you're going to show up on the main screen during the recording.
Yeah, I still don't see the screen.
You don't see the presentation yet? Let's see.
I'm seeing it.
People still see it?
Yeah,
I do.
I do.
I do too.
Great.
I can see it.
Cover sheet.
Yeah, that's, I think is where it cover sheet, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm here to talk about the 2020 census. So this is one of the things that RPC is constantly involved in, but obviously during the decennial census, there's a lot more work that goes on. So what is the census? It's required by the U.S. Constitution, and it's a count of every person in the United States taken every 10 years. It is conducted by the US Census Bureau, but they do rely heavily on lots of local partners and what they call trusted voices, because we're really the ones that know our own community and know where people are, and hopefully we can be the people that others can come to if they have questions or concerns. So after this year, the next census is in 2030, so we only get one opportunity per decade to get a complete count. And why does the census matter? Well, it brings money to our communities. That's a big part of it. In FY 2016, there were 55 federal spending programs applied on 2010 census data, and that distributed $883 billion to states, communities, and households. And those that was done through programs like Medicaid, where there was $361 billion distributed, highways, $40 billion distributed, Section 8 public housing vouchers is $19 million distributed, and Illinois received $34 billion total out of all that thing. However, we have learned that for every person that goes uncounted, Illinois could lose at least $1,400 per person per year. And then when you add that up over the next 10 years, that's $14,000 per person. So this was part of a study done by George Washington University, and they kind of looked at it state by state. We've seen estimates of $1,800 and $2,300 per person that's lost for every person that's uncounted. So it's really important to get a complete count. Also, why it matters is really political representation at all levels of government. So not only for the U.S. House of Representatives, that the number of seats for each state is determined by census data, but then at the state and local levels, census data helps determine legislative boundaries and city council boundaries, things like that. After 2010, Illinois lost one House seat. And after this census, we could lose another House seat just based on population decline, but we could lose 2 House seats if there's an undercount. So that's again why the count is very important. How can census data be used? Businesses use it to find out where people live, where to target building their business or targeting their advertising. Education, schools and school districts use it to know how many teachers they need in their buildings, how many materials like textbooks and things like that. Healthcare, very important right now. People, facilities need to know where people are and who to accommodate for, what kind of population to accommodate for, especially in this kind of pandemic world we're living in. I talked about political representation and transportation too. Besides highways, actually, like the MCOR project on in the heart of our community, that was federal funding, and so having census data helped MTD and others with applying for funding and showing that we have a need for that type of infrastructure here. Who is working on this locally? A lot of folks. So we have 2 committees at our local level. One is our Champaign County Area Complete Count Committee, or CCCCC, which is something that I head and the regional planning organizes. And this is something that, going back to what I said about the Census Bureau relying on local trusted voices helping out, they had training for us last summer, and these CCCs exist all around the country. And it's our local agencies and leaders that are able to keep on top of what's happening with the census and try to work on outreach. There's also a group called the Illinois Count Me in 2020 Committee. That is led by the University YMCA, the New American Welcome Center, and we are also part of that. Several groups in the community are. There's a grant through a group called Forefront at the state level, and they're really targeting immigrant populations, marginalized populations, to make sure everybody gets counted. At the regional level, so for the first time ever, the state has grants for local areas to do census work. and they split the state into different regions. So we're in the Northeast Central Illinois region, which is 6 counties that include Champaign, Douglas, Piatt, Iroquois, Vermilion, and Ford counties. So just a little bit all around Champaign-Urbana. And all this at the state level is organized by the Illinois Department of Human Services. And then there's also a listserv maintained at Northern Illinois University, their Center for Governmental Studies. They distribute census information to all of us. So our CCC is, like I said, it's a program that is key to creating awareness in communities all across the U.S. And then we all are involved and committed to getting each and every person counted, making sure they're counted only once and counted in the right place. Our local CCC, we normally at the RPC work with these 7 governments. Like I was saying, we work on census data regularly. We do maintain a website where we look at the annual census data and how that is affecting the community, what kind of numbers are coming out. So we work with not only the county, but the cities of Champaign and Urbana, and then the villages of Rantoul, Savoy, Mahomet, and St. Joseph. And this slide shows many other groups that are on the CCC, and we actually keep adding. So besides those local governments, at RPC, we coordinate work with the homeless. So there's a continuum of service providers to the homeless. We have Head Start and early childhood programming, and then our planning and community development division that I'm in. The public health departments in each of the counties are part of this. The housing authority, the libraries. We've had ministerial alliances participate, as well as school districts, Senator or Representative Carol Ammons, and the University of Illinois, the University YMCA, and Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center. And there are actually 11 groups in the 6 counties that have these census grants. So some other groups like the Y, the Neighborhood Connection Center, City of Urbana have received grants as well. So looking a little at 2010 versus 2020. Last decade, last census, the self-response, as we call it, where people just respond on their own without someone needing to come to their door. In Champaign County, we had almost 80% of people respond on their own. The idea for this is to have people respond on their own. That's our preferred response. So that if someone comes to your door and you're a person who doesn't feel comfortable with a government worker coming to your door, maybe you're not a citizen. All citizens should fill out the census, but maybe some people don't know that. We want to make sure everyone gets counted and that they know that their information is safe and confidential. So the timeline was that every invitations would start going out in mid-March, and for the first time ever, the census is online. So people can respond online, by mail, or by phone. And hopefully you all know this and have completed your census, but if not, we'll talk. So ahead of the launch in March, we created this flyer invitation, and it's actually 4 languages, so it's double-sided. We have English, Spanish, French, and Mandarin. And this was something we could distribute at events and to people so that they knew the census form would be coming and that they should complete it. And if they had questions, they could call us. So this year there was a letter sent that has a 12-digit code for completing your census online, but you don't need the code to do it online. Census Bureau did 5 mailings, and in the 4th mailing was the paper questionnaire. The door-to-door visits were scheduled to begin in June, and obviously things have been on hold. So the good news is the self-response period has been extended. The original deadline was July 31st. It's now October 31st. And because of that, the census workers are not scheduled to start door-to-door visits until August 11th. So I've talked about some things that you're going to see on these slides. Again, preferred participation is self-response. And then the baseline day for completing your census form is where you were living on April 1st. If someone has multiple residences, like a snowbird, we ask that you complete it based on where you live and sleep most of the time. So hopefully that's still Illinois, even if you're somewhere else during the winter. And then University of Illinois students also should complete their form for their campus address. That has been a challenge with this stay-at-home period because those in dorms and Greek houses should be counted by the university, but those in apartments do still need to count themselves at their campus address, even if they went home when the pandemic started to their family house, because they live and sleep in Champaign-Urbana most of the time. So there are some tools that we can look at for what we're calling hard to count populations, and they are mapping tools. One is called ROAM. It's the Response Area Mapper from the Census Bureau. You can see an image on the right that are what was anticipated to be the hardest to count tracts are actually the hardest to count tracts, or the lowest response tracts, which is Campus and North Champaign, North Urbana. Other tools are called HTC 2020 and the Illinois HTC Index. I've got several types of populations here that are considered hard to count, and that's how we've been planning our work. Those that are very young, under the age of 5, that's 6% of Champaign County. In 2010, it was estimated that 1 million children nationwide were undercounted or not counted. So that's, again, why we are working with Head Start. The young and mobile, 15 to 24, that's your college age audience. They may think their parents are filling out the census for them. It's better that, in a way, they get counted twice so that the Census Bureau can filter out where they are supposed to be counted and just count them once. Say that their parents count them and they count themselves on campus. They can get counted on campus. Those over the age of 85, so our older population, people with income below 100% of the poverty level, about a fifth of Champaign County, households receiving public assistance income, people of color, Hispanics 6%, blacks 14%, Asians 11%. Foreign born is 12%, but 46% of the foreign born entered the US since 2010. So they were not here for the last census. So they, again, may not even be aware that they should complete it. I know there was this question about a citizenship question, if it was going to be on the form, which it is not. So we don't want people to be afraid of filling it out because of something like that. Limited English speaking households, people who have moved from an outside county in the past year, people who are not high school graduates, unemployed persons, people who live in renter occupied housing, which is 45% of households. There are a lot of renter occupied households in Champaign County, obviously, and the census is really based on address. So they want to make sure that they count every household, and it can be difficult if somebody has moved out and they can't kind of get anybody counted there, which then goes into vacant housing units. Large and overcrowded households, when you get to 6 or 10 or more people in one household, you can't complete the paper form, and so you have to either go to online or phone. That can be a barrier for some folks. Non-family households, almost half the households in Champaign County, when you think about people, college students and others living with roommates, and people without internet access or cell phone data to get to a secure internet connection, a fast internet connection. So how can we be a part of the 2020 census? Well, since last summer, we've been working to educate our communities about why the census happens and when it happens and how to participate, like I'm doing today. Last year, we were at things like the Taste, events like the Taste and Sweet Corn Festival. We had a family and community engagement resource fair. We were part of the Expungement and Record Sealing Summit Resource Fair, and there was a Head Start awareness walk. And then We had a table in Brookings at the LIHEAP walk-in appointments. So far this year, our outreach was going very well, and it still is, just in a different way. Parent-teacher conferences for Head Start. We had in the top picture these books that are called We Count, and it's a reading book that families can read together and count who should be counted in their household. Again, we gave out those flyers. We've had a lot of different types of giveaways. Read Across America at Lincoln Square was a big hit. And then we had a launch event on March 12th, which was a little overshadowed by the world news, but we still had a good event where we were able to celebrate all the work we've done so far. And then since we moved to staying at home, we've had to get a little creative. And so some of the flyers, we've worked with a lot of agencies and put them in food distributions. Also for the We Count books, it's a nonprofit. They created placemats, and they have a lot of different activities, word searches and coloring and things like that. So we were able to order those and get those in food distributions for Head Start and Urbana School District, Mahomet, St. Joe, Champaign. And the yard signs, we've created a lot. We have several out. We can put out more in the future as needed. And then we have some in Spanish too. And if you can see on the slide, there are QR codes that go directly to our census, not only our local census site, but the census form, and different methods for getting to the census. So in the weeks leading up to April 1st, everyone was mailed a letter, and we just asked that everybody responds, because it only takes 10 minutes or less typically, and everyone counts, from newborns, everybody born alive on April 1st, up to senior citizens. I talked a little about the March and April period and the 5 mailings that people would get. Those getting hand-delivered packets, that did stop in mid-March, but that is resuming this month in June at different households that don't have a mailbox, that might have a P.O. box, or even like senior living facilities that got a call about that yesterday. And then August 11th to October 31st is when the census takers will come door to door. And I touched on this a bit, but there is a different procedure for counting in what we call group quarters. And that includes dorms, but also group homes, nursing homes, residential treatment centers, and prisons. And those are where the people running those facilities will compile all the information and send it to the Census Bureau directly. And then people experiencing homelessness, the dates are to be rescheduled. So this was supposed to happen at the end of March, where Census Bureau employees would go to different soup kitchens and shelters, and then even out on the street on 3 different days and count folks living in those places. And when it's safe to do so, they will reschedule that. But that is something that with the work RPC does, we've been able to coordinate which providers should be part of that. I mentioned the census is online for the first time this year, and you can go to my2020census.gov. It's also available if you go to 2020census.gov or census.gov, but the direct link is my2020census.gov. And then there are phone and paper options. And for the online and phone options, the census form is in English and 12 other languages. And then there are print and video language guides in 59 languages, including American Sign Language, Braille, and large print guides. The questions, there's about 9 or 10, depending on which format you're taking it in and how you get asked. But essentially, it asks about the number and relation of people living in your home, the housing ownership, if you own or rent, your sex, your age, and then race and ethnicity. I mentioned that the information is confidential. The Census Bureau employees take a lifetime oath of not sharing the information. Otherwise, they are subject to a $250,000 fine and at least 5 years in prison. The statistics are not released in a way that can individually identify you. So they're only aggregated to a block group or a block level at the smallest level. And then there are, the data is not released for 72 years. So now you can go back to, I think it's the 1930s or 40s and see some of the individual responses, but it's basically a lifetime of protection. So how you can help: complete the census for yourself and every member of your household, and help spread the word about the importance of the census by speaking at events and meetings like this, and speaking with your friends and neighbors, and following and sharing on social media. I talked a little about this, how we are at RPC are a part of the census. So with our grant, we targeted working with our clients that we already work with, which includes the early childhood families, LIHEAP participants, people experiencing homelessness, and seniors. And then we have tablets, which we hope to use again, because we set up an assistance hub at the Brookins Center, and we hope to resume that in the future, as well as places like Head Start sites, where we can have the tablet available for people to complete the census, and they can get assistance from us if needed. I wanted to show you what the response rates are so far. So this is another nice feature of the 2020 census, is if you just go online to look up the response rates, they have all of that for various geographies. They have maps. And as of Tuesday, they update this every day at 2 o'clock. The United States has a 60%, a little over 60% response rate. Illinois is higher at almost 66%. Champaign County is above 63%. Champaign is at 59%. Urbana at 61%. Savoy at almost 65%. Rantoul, 59.2%. And Mahomet and St. Joe doing very well at 78 and 80, almost 82% respectively. This has a lot of resources. There are phone lines, like I mentioned, for help, the my2020census.gov website, and not only for social media, there's the US Census Bureau, the Illinois Census, and our local channels. The hashtags they've been using are 2020 Census, for Spanish speakers, Censo 2020, and then locally, one of our partners came up. Locally, if you look us up on Facebook and Twitter, and actually our website, and Gmail, we're trying to use the same handle. So 2020 Central Illinois Census. So we post something every day or repost something, and then more people out. We do have a website which will probably be functional just till the end of the month, since we were planning to conclude operations in June, but now things have been extended. It's 2020 CentralIllinoisCensus.org. And then we again have Champaign County 2020 Census at gmail.com. So again, we just want to make sure everyone is counted once, only once, and in the right place. And I will stop sharing my screen and be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I have a question. Particularly with the homeless, how do you make sure you only count those people once or count them at all? That's what seems like really difficult.
Yeah, I will just say the outreach we were doing ahead of time was, before the form opened, was we had information cards that went to our coordinator that he distributed to everyone who works with the homeless, that says it was supposed to be March 30th. People will be coming to shelters, and then March 31st to kitchens, and then April 1st, going door to door or going on the streets. We now have also ordered a lot of reusable bags, and that's another awareness thing. That's more of a question for the Census Bureau that I don't have a direct answer to. I think because between their operations and all of our providers, they will have to make sure that they're not double counting people. It's ultimately up to the Census Bureau, but I think more of the concern has been getting everyone counted once and maybe not as much concern about double counting with that population.
Gabe, I got a question for you. I did our census way back in April, like we were online, like we're supposed to, but I'm now getting phone calls telling me, and I'm trying to figure out if they're legit before I've answered them or whether what they're about.
Good question. One thing to point out is that the Census Bureau administers dozens of surveys every year. And one of those is the American Community Survey. There are other types, but this spring they also created a household pulse survey, which was about how the pandemic is affecting people. And they were going to administer that by phone as well as I think online. I'm not really sure the logistics of that. So we were not thrilled about that because we figured it would cause some confusion when we know that people just should complete the decennial census. But that is, they do other surveys, so that I'm guessing maybe that was what it was about. There is a website for not only how many surveys they do, but like basically fraud. So if someone is afraid that, you know, you're being either phoned or somebody coming to your door that's not a legitimate worker, you can check on that website, like they should have a badge, or you can ask for like a badge number to make sure that they're legit.
I have a question. Gabe, I'm looking at the responses. The smaller towns have got higher rates because they don't have minorities in their town and everything. That's what I am assuming. Now, I'm wondering if your office is in contact with the
Sorry.
I'm wondering if you are in contact with the community and the religious leaders of the minorities, so they can be assured that their information won't be shared with federal and state governments. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question. We have worked, I mean, we are working with dozens of folks essentially, whether that's an agency or a particular person. One person is John Matanda of the Congolese community. He runs a Facebook page and he's like the trusted voice in that community.
Yeah.
So he promoted it, you know, not only myself, but my colleague at City of Urbana. We reached out to him, and then he does a Facebook Live every morning, and he talked about the census and the importance of doing it. We have been trying to get faith leaders. We haven't really gotten much engagement with the Interfaith Alliance, but Rep. Ammon's office has been in touch with them, and then like City of Champaign Neighborhood Services, that actually we've had multiple folks from City of Champaign. We're hoping that those folks have been able to talk with some of our faith leaders. We did have the Muhammad Ministerial Alliance on our CCC, and then Village of Muhammad has been a part of this constantly, so they've continued the work through them. There was also a faith action weekend. I don't think I'm getting the exact name right, at the end of March that the Census Bureau did nationwide. And they always have these videos, but they did some nice videos that had different leaders of different faiths talking about why the census is important and why that people should do it. And so we still have, that's still available. We can still always share those kind of short videos with folks, or faith leaders can do the same if they feel like they don't know how to come up with the messaging. We can share that.
Yeah.
Gabe, the And the agency LIHEAP, that's for low-income individuals and families that need assistance with housing and medical-related issues. Is that correct?
Yes. An interesting thing this year. So, you know, we worked, if I don't know that you've been in our building, but those walk-in days, they happen the first of the month in the fall. So it's October 1st, November 1st, and December 1st. And it's different populations. So I think October was seniors, and then November, I believe, is if you have children or something, and then December is the general public. And we get a lot of people that come in and are waiting in line in the lobby. So we're kind of taking advantage of a captive audience. We had a table and our tablet and things like that. And I think we even gave away stuff. And we were planning to be back April 1st, which was going to be the next big walk-in day, but that didn't happen. This fall, we actually introduced online scheduling. So in mid-October, I mean, it's not my program, but that's something they've been working on. So there was a bit of a reduction in foot traffic from October to November, which was surprising to all of us, but good that people are able to use the online scheduling. And then our community services division this spring during the stay-at-home has been instructed to follow up with their clients and ask when they do weekly phone calls, hey, have you done the census? If not, we can help. Let us know if you need help. So a little bit different operations than we were planning, but hopefully we're still getting the connection with those folks.
Thank you.
Gabe, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think you said the University of Illinois students are counted here in Champaign. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have some difficulties because of probably many of the students went home during that time? Has that been a problem, or? It's
been a problem in general to get the students counted, and it usually is. So I think that map I showed in the presentation, I mentioned the center of town university district is hard to count and low response. It's actually become our lowest response area. So for 2020, with the state grants and the university Y, and also, I mean, the university itself was on our CCC, but the university Y was planning to have not only events, but be at like the Union and the Quad and have ways that people could do the census right then and there as they're going to class or whatever. And all of that stopped, you know, none of that could happen. So, because we didn't have people going to class. The interesting thing is we've learned a lot of people in apartments still stuck around. So it's a little baffling why we're still seeing such low response rates. The university has a dedicated web page to the census and telling students how they should complete their form depending on where they live. They push things through their social media and then their departments because they feel the other issue was basically email fatigue with having COVID updates all the time. And they needed, like, they asked departments to send information about the census because they would be more listened to. But there's been a lot of us in the community concerned. I mean, we're not the only college town that's probably going to see low response rates. There's something called a special census that can be done in the future. It means a community has to pay the Census Bureau to do another count, but if we see very low numbers, that's probably going to have to be the approach. So it's been a challenge.
I have a question or a comment and a question. My hobby is genealogy, and so I just wanted to mention how helpful the census information is for us genealogists. A lot of times they're much more reliable than family histories or other data sources that genealogists use. The only unreliable part about them is that the adults often lie about their age. So if any of you are interested in genealogy, that's something I would point out. Then I have a question. It was pretty obvious looking at the statistics that Gabe offered that the higher socioeconomic communities have a better response rate. Now, obviously, that must be pretty evident to the federal government when those numbers roll in. And I'm just wondering, do any of these agencies use any sort of a multiplier to try to accommodate low-income communities for that discrepancy?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the Census Bureau itself is really, they're interested in getting a complete count, but a lot of the work or information I've seen about them, I don't want to say manipulating the data, but kind of in that vein, is to make sure that it doesn't get down to an individual level, but they, keeping it at a neighborhood level. But I haven't seen anything about trying to use multipliers to estimate, how many people truly live in a lower socioeconomic area. It's a good question. We've all continued to be meeting online and working and finding ways to reaching out to these hard to count populations, but we really wanted to be in the neighborhoods and basically be ahead of, and hopefully we still can be, but get ahead of the door-to-door census workers so that people could just get it completed before they have somebody else come to their door that they don't want to talk to.
Gabe, I think we're going to leave it at that.
Hang on a minute. I have a question.
Yeah.
And I got bumped out somewhere along the way, Gabe. I'm Rob Patton. Remember you from the RPC many moons ago. And I might have missed this, but I believe that the census is actually a part of our Constitution. And so I know there's been some effort to change what we do with the census, but wouldn't that take an act of Congress in order to get that changed? That in order to change the Constitution, we would need Congress involved in that. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know how that any other body could do that. Yeah.
All right, Gabe, thank you. And your email address is, I'll share your email address if you people have other questions. We will donate some books to Head Start and when things are back to normal, sort of in your name.
Great.
Rob, I figured out why I didn't see you because I had made Gabe host to share his screen. And so when he was host, I wasn't seeing people in the waiting room. So
that's okay. I don't know why I got bumped out. I don't know what happened along the way.
The greater God. Anyway, as we wind down toward my last 3 meetings coming up as president, Carrie, can you help us look forward to like the end of a term?
Oh, I don't know about that. I had trouble getting on this morning. We lost power overnight here, had some computer trouble. So I don't have anything for ending your term, but I got thinking about computers. And did you know the first computers date back to Adam and Eve? It was an apple. And hold on, not done. Don't groan yet. It gets worse.
Yeah,
it gets worse. But it was an apple and it had a very limited memory. It had 1 bite. And then it all crashed.
Somebody stop him.
Yeah.
That's the president's responsibility.
And next week, it'll be one of my friends, Dean Plumidor, talking about the Champaign County Sports Car Club. Not this weekend, but next weekend, they'll be doing their first ever autocross under social distancing, which is interesting. So anyway, Rotarian Sunrisers, have a great week.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Gabe.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you. Gabe, that was great. Great
Thanks.
presentation.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Hey, Daryl, got a question for you.
Yes.
I'm on Facebook and changed a frame to say, ask me about Rotary. A lot of clubs have their own frame. Is there any way we could create one?
You've exceeded my technical knowledge.
I just wondered. It's really interesting because it's kind of a neat thing to do, and it's a good way of saying you are a Rotarian. And I thought that would be kind of, if we could get the whole club to do it, or it's a good way to, because mine says, ask me. If you go to my Facebook, most people on it. Ask me about Rotary.
So the frame on your banner picture, or the frame on your
frame my profile picture when you first go to me says, ask me about Rotary. And it's a frame that goes around, like right around you. So it's a great. I think it's a great thing to kind of promote. And if we could do one specifically, this is just a general one, but I noticed it a lot. And when I looked under frames, if you go to edit your profile picture, it'll let you find your picture, and then it says, do you want to add a frame to it? And I just queried Rotary, and tons of Rotary, and a lot of clubs have their own frame.
Maybe the next meeting we can do a share screen with you, and you can demo this for us.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like I could figure it out.
Gabe,
see you guys.
Thanks again. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Gabe.
Thanks.
See you guys next week.
Eddie, see you later. Bob.
Yep. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.